time is 3:39 p.m. We are back on the record.
Mr. Browder, I want you to refer to Exhibit 15, page 4. That's where we were. At the end of paragraph 3, paragraph 3 refers to two companies, Quartel and Bankinor. All right? And you're saying, it says here, our clients, that's Hermitage, right, have discovered that both of these accounts are controlled by the same entities. You see that?
Could you just give me a
Yeah.
better... which paragraph is it?
Paragraph number 3
Okay.
says both of these accounts are controlled by the same entity. Ah, wait a minute. We had a question pending and a consideration of... could you read back my last question before the break?
Is there anything you can do now?
Is there anything that the legitimate, even though you don't have anything that you've described already, right? Well, I asked him the source of information, and you were going to consider.
It may make sense to just re-ask the question. I don't know that I remember the specifics. It's not retractable.
What was it? Oh, okay, yeah. We were talking about Aravest, and the question is, do you have any recent information that would show that Mr. Stepanov controls Aravest?
Not to my personal knowledge.
Does your team have information?
I'm not aware.
Did you provide any information beyond the information in this letter to the U.S. Attorney?
Not that I'm aware of.
Could you speak up?
Not that I'm aware of.
All right. Okay. So we go to paragraph 3. Then it says our clients have discovered that both of these accounts are controlled by the same entities. We're referring to Quartel and Bankinor. I don't see any information in this letter or the attachments that would show that both these accounts are controlled by the same entities. Do you have any facts that would demonstrate that Quartel and Bankinor are controlled by the same entity?
Not to my personal knowledge.
Does your team have any information?
I'm not sure.
Did you ever discuss this with the U.S. Attorney's Office?
No.
All right, so then we go down to what is described here as step 1. The illicit proceeds were first transferred to Quartel's account. A payment of 2 million euros was made on January 23rd from a company incorporated in New Zealand, Bistol Export Limited. Do you see that?
Yes.
And I think you can find that information in the exhibits on page 75. So what's the base number? 2478. Would you take a look at that?
Sure.
$2301.08. Do you see that?
Yes.
So what is this document? It says, just let me read what it says. There's appears to be the letterhead of Credit Suisse. There's a current account number, but a name or something above the current account number, below the current account number is crossed out, and it says extract of account 01 31.01.2008 to 31.01.2008. So what is this document?
It's a Credit Suisse statement.
And who typed in extract of account?
I don't know.
And who crossed out the information?
Paraplegic.
Do you know why he crossed it out? Did he tell you why?
No.
All right, so this supposedly is money that came to Quartel from the $230 million fraud, right?
I assume so. I'm not a specialist.
No, but isn't that what that says? Isn't that what the letter says? The whole point is that Stepanov got money from the $230 million fraud, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
All right. So Bristol Export Limited is not anywhere on your other charts. So what company is that? Who owns that?
I'm not sure.
And how did that company get the $2 million?
I don't
2
know.
million euros.
I don't know.
So you don't know what the path of the money went to demonstrate that this came from the $230 million theft of the Russian treasury, right?
Right.
So is this another assumption that because there's $2 million that came in on January 28th, it must be from the Russian treasury?
No.
So then how do you say this is the illicit proceeds?
I didn't do the tracing.
And you have no understanding of the tracing conducted by your team?
No.
So you have no explanation for how somewhere 2 million euros shows up, transferred from Bristol Export to a company Quartel, and you have no way, as far as you know, of tying it to the $230 million.
I'm sorry, what's the question?
You have no way of tying this transaction shown on this page, which is Bates number 2478, to the $230 million.
Personally, I don't.
Do you know whether members of your team have it?
I would assume so.
Have you given it to U.S. Attorney?
What?
The information tying this to the $230 million.
I'm confused. What are we tying to the $230 million?
The payment from Bristol Export Limited to what you are claiming is a Quartel account.
I don't know.
And you haven't given us any documents that would show that, right?
I don't know.
So then, tracing through this, or following this letter, there are 2 more transfers. That are shown on page 79, which is Bates number 2482. This is from Nominex. It's 1.999 million. I assume, although there's no denomination here, from the letter it says it's euros. So how did Nominex get money from the $230 million?
I have no personal knowledge.
And of course, if you can't trace this back to the $230 million, the whole idea that Mr. Stepanov got money from the $230 million falls apart, doesn't it?
I'm sorry, what's the question?
Isn't it true that if you can't trace money into Bristol trading and Nominex trading from the $230 million, that the whole idea that Mr. Stepanov got money from the $230 million falls apart? There's nothing on these documents that shows it comes from the $230 million.
Is that a question or a statement?
Ask it again. Is there, if you don't have evidence that Bristol Trading and Nominex Trading received money from the $230 million, there's no basis to say that Mr. Stepanoff received money from the $230 million.
That's incorrect.
What's the basis?
I don't have a basis, but other people do.
You're the one who took this to the U.S. Attorney's Office. You've taken this public. You've talked about it all over the world. You have no idea how this works. Is that true?
Could you rephrase the question?
No. You have no idea how this works.
Subject to the form. What's the this?
How this tracing works.
I'm not a specialist on money tracing.
So you have no idea how it works.
I didn't say that.
Well, explain to me how it works. Let's not use the letter or the documents or whatever. Explain how you get money from $230 million into an account that you say is controlled by Mr. Stepanoff.
I have a team of people who work for me who are specialists in this area, who I trust, who are credible, who put this information together.
And you have no idea how they bridge the gap between the 230 and Bristol and Nomirex.
That's correct.
And none of them are accountants, by the way, right?
There are no accountants on our team.
And none of them ever testified in a U.S. proceeding about tracing money, right?
That's correct.
None of them have testified anywhere in the world about tracing money, right?
That's incorrect.
Who's testified about tracing money?
Vadim Kleiner has testified.
And where has he testified?
In Switzerland.
Do you have that testimony?
No, I don't believe we are allowed to keep it.
Did you give it to the U.S. Attorney's Office?
No.
And he's testified about tracing what money?
The money you're referring to here.
This,
I believe.
This exact money.
I don't know.
Have you seen his testimony?
No.
Have the Swiss gone forward with a criminal case against anybody trying a case, charges against anybody based upon Mr. Kleiner's testimony?
I don't know.
Well, okay. So you get money from your team, gets money from Bristol and Nomirex into an account with the name crossed out that they tell us is the Quartel account. But they don't have any money going to Mr. Stepanoff based upon that. Instead, there's another series of account statements. Start on page 81, which is deposition, Bates number 2484 and number 15, exhibit 15. And these accounts, do you know what these accounts are?
Yes.
What are they? Starting on 2484 and going over the next subsequent pages. What are they?
$24.84, $24.85, and $24.86 are bank details that come from Citibank.
So they're bank details of what? I read here Raffinson Central Bank. with a Z. Account name. So where did you get, I mean, what is it, if you know,
These are account statements
for Raffens and Central Bank?
held at Citibank, New York.
Okay. And what does Raffens and Central Bank have to do with this case?
I'm not sure. I think they were the correspondent bank. They were the correspondent bank for Universal Savings Bank, Intercommerce Bank. I can't remember which one.
Okay, well, we got 6 million euros into Quartel, and I don't see any transfers from Quartel into this account, at least nothing of substance. Am I missing something?
I don't know.
Well, take a look. Do you see any transfers from Quartel?
I'm not sure what to be looking for here.
Well, your team is saying that the money went from the Russian treasury, somehow got to Bristol and Nominex and into what they say is a Quartel account. And then the next thing they say, if we look at the letter, is that wire transfer statistics obtained as a result of the court's ruling show that the following payments were made to Bristol and Nominex immediately prior to the payments to Quartel.
Could you just alert me to what page you're on?
Yeah, page 5 of the letter. Date's number 2397.
And which paragraph?
It's the one with the 3 bullets. Have you read it?
Yeah.
Okay. So they say Bristol and Quartel immediately prior to the payments to Quartel. Bristol and Nomirex immediately prior to the payments to Quartel got $498,955 US dollars transferred to Bristol from Roland Management Limited. You see that?
Yes.
And that's a UK company. What does Roland Management Limited have to do with this case?
I don't know.
Why is it relevant that Bristol got money from Roland Management Limited?
I don't know.
And then on February 5th, the amount of $491,585 was transferred to Bristol from Bunicom. Do you see that?
Yes.
Why is it relevant that prior to Bristol and Nomirex making payments to Quartel, got money less than $500,000 from Bunicom?
I don't know.
And on the 5th, the amount of $726,000 was transferred to Nomirex from Bunicom. Why is that relevant?
I don't know.
And who would know, be able to answer these questions?
My team,
Who on your team?
lawyers, and Vadim.
So if we go back to the account statements,
Which page?
wait a minute. Then it goes step 2, same letter, page 5. 4 months after the funds were transferred, Quartel, similar amounts were transferred from Baikonur account to Aravist. So how do you get the money from Quartel to Baikonur?
I don't know.
All right, and I think we've had enough. You're not going to be able to help us with any of this. Fill the gaps that aren't explained in these documents, right?
Objection to form.
That's editorial. I'll withdraw it. So, if you can go to, Bates number 2489. No, 2488. Do you know what this document is?
Bank statement,
From what account?
Credit Suisse.
What account? Who's the account holder?
I don't know.
It's crossed out here, right? Correct?
Correct.
Where did you get this document?
Alexander Parapolicini.
So there's a payment made from whatever account this is to Aravist, but you don't know how the money got into this account, right?
I don't know.
You don't know. And you can't trace this, you don't know how to trace this to the $230 million fraud, right?
I don't know.
So there are payments here to Quartel and payments to Aravist, right?
I don't know.
Well, I'm just looking at the document.
I see
Right.
two payments on the
Right.
26th of May 2008 for 1.5 million to Aravest, and it looks like a payment from payment to and then payment from Quartel on the 26th of May,
130,000.
130,000.
Right. And the 1.5 million that appears to cover the payment from Aravest is a foreign exchange transaction outright short, meaning it's a loan from the bank, right? Is that how you interpret that?
No,
Foreign exchange outright short. How would you interpret that?
I'm not an expert on Credit Suisse bank statements. I'd rather not try to interpret it.
But whatever that is, that seems to cover the 1.5 that was made to Aravest.
I don't know.
So we don't know where that came from, then, right?
I don't know.
There's nothing showing this money coming from Quartel and then being transferred from whatever account this is to Aravest, right?
I don't know.
So there's no chain here that you can perceive, right?
I don't know.
So the next series of documents, well, it's all the same. You don't have any idea what any of these transactions are, right?
Objection to form. Which transactions are you?
The ones that are on the Credit Suisse bank statements for the account where the name has been crossed out.
Which transaction are you referring to?
2488, 2489.
Which ones are you
Any
asking
of
me?
them. Can you give me any more information about where the money came from? For instance, on, no, keep going. Idiot. $24.91. Where'd the money come from that went to Accolade Properties? 250,000 something.
Which payment are we looking at now?
24.91.
And which one on 2491?
First transaction at the top.
So, payment order, electronic banking, Icotay Properties, debit 250,000.
Right, that's
This is
payment
payment
to
to.
Accolade.
This looks like a payment to Icotay Properties on the 1st of July 2009.
Right. Do you know where that money came from?
I don't know.
Okay, so the next series of documents starts on Credit Suisse documents that look like wire transfers, right?
What page?
2493. So that's a transfer of $629,000 to something called Emerald Palace Group Limited, right?
Yes,
And the payment is for the benefit of Mr. Stepanoff, right?
that's correct.
Makes no mention of Stepanova, right?
Yes,
And the next payment on March 6th, that's for the benefit of Mr. Stepanoff, right?
March 26th.
Next page.
March 26th. You said March 6th.
I meant March 26th.
Okay,
It's for the benefit of Mr. Stepanoff, right?
that's correct.
June 8th, for the benefit, keep going, benefit of Mr. Stepanoff. No mention of Stepanova, right?
Correct.
September, same thing. Investment of building, it says, for the benefit of Mr. Stepanoff, right?
Correct.
Appears to be a unit in the building. Then you get to the next one, Sunny Beach Properties. It's 25th of April, 2007, right?
Correct.
So that's before the $230 million fraud, right?
Yes.
Mr. Stepanoff. This doesn't mention Mr. Stepanoff. Sunny Beach Properties, right?
Yep.
There's one in October of '07. Doesn't mention anybody other than Sunny Beach Properties. Do you know who owns Sunny Beach Properties?
I'm not sure.
Well, if you go to the next page, Sunny Beach Properties details of payment for real estate for Mr. Stepanoff, right?
Yep.
So you have a couple of transactions where he's buying substantial apartments, $252,000, $277,000 before the $230 million fraud occurred, right?
No.
And he continues that afterwards.
On page 2499, this was April 15th, 2008.
Right.
The fraud occurred in December of 2007.
Yeah, but the two prior ones were October 18th, 2007, and April 25th, 2007. And at that point, he's spending a substantial amount of money for Sunny Beach Properties. Looks like he's buying properties. Unit 424. The other one doesn't have a unit attached to it. So before the fraud, he's spending a substantial amount of money buying real estate, right?
Correct.
And none of this ever mentions Miss Stepanova, right?
So far, no.
So far. Is there any that mention Miss Stepanova?
Not that I'm aware of. The next
Have-
one,
have
the,
you
next,
gone?
the next one mentions Elena Anisimova, who's the deputy of Miss Stepanova in the tax office number 28.
Okay, but there's nothing there that mentions Miss Stepanova either, right?
This woman was also involved in the tax refund.
So, have you gone to the real estate records in Dubai?
Yeah.
Did you find any evidence of ownership of this property in the real estate? Of the properties that Mr. Stepanov bought?
There's an ownership of a property in Dubai that he's bought.
And is there any indication Ms. Stepanova has an interest in that property?
Not that I'm aware of.
So to be clear, there is not a single document that you've been able to come up with anywhere where Ms. Stepanova owns a bank account that received money from the $230 million fraud, owns real estate from the $230 million fraud, or has any other asset that she's received from the $230 million fraud, right?
She's not a direct recipient in any of the documents that we have.
And she's not, and there are no documents indicating she's an indirect recipient either. Is that correct?
There's no documents, but we believe that the assets that belong to her husband are jointly owned by her.
And you have no facts that would support that belief, correct?
Common sense.
Your common sense.
And a lot of other people's.
There are no documents and no facts other than this assumption that Ms. Stepanova received anything from the $230 million fraud. Isn't that true?
There's no documents with her name on them.
And Mr. Stepanov and Ms. Stepanova are divorced, correct?
Not sure.
Have you checked the records in Moscow?
There's some question about those records.
Are there records that indicate they are divorced?
There are.
And what is the question about those records, other than the fact that you don't like them?
The timing of the records and the veracity of the records, but I'm not an expert on these records.
Is there something on the records that gives somebody... Strike that. Do you have the records?
I don't.
Does your team have the records?
I don't know.
Don't you think if you're going to accuse somebody of a huge fraud that you ought to collect the relevant documents?
And what's the question?
Don't you think that if you're going to accuse somebody, as you have, of an enormous fraud, that you ought to collect the relevant documents?
My team has collected relevant documents which were submitted to the Swiss prosecutor and submitted to the New York District Attorney's Office about this fraud.
But you haven't gotten the divorce records.
Not to my knowledge.
So anything that might upset your theory, you decide you don't need.
Objection to form.
Is that right?
Could you rephrase the question?
Yes. Isn't it true that any document that might upset your theory, you don't go and get it?
No.
Well, you didn't get the divorce records, right?
I didn't.
And your team didn't, as far as you know.
I just said that not to my knowledge do they have them. Didn't say they didn't.
Well, you don't know they have them, right?
I don't know. Not to my knowledge.
Right. Mr. Stepanov has challenged your story in court, hasn't he?
I've never been to court with Mr. Stepanov.
He's sued a reporter who republished the information on your website. Isn't that true?
No,
No?
no.
You're not aware of that?
He didn't sue a reporter.
Who did he sue?
He sued an activist.
I see. Is this like a whistleblower? Another label you give people? Who's this activist?
Alexei Navalny.
And Mr. Stepanov sued Alexei Navalny, right?
Yes.
And it was Mr. Stepanov who won, right?
That's correct.
Got a judgment for defamation against Mr. Navalny, right?
Correct.
For republishing the information on your website.
That's correct.
Are you aware of any information that the U.S. Attorney's Office has collected beyond the information in Exhibit 46 related to the Stepanov payment?
Could you show me Exhibit 46?
That's the one we've been looking at. Hmm? Oh, I'm sorry. I misspoke. It's my tab 46, but it's Exhibit 15.
Could you repeat the question?
Yes. Thank you. Are you aware of any information other than the information in Exhibit 15 that the U.S. Attorney's Office has collected with respect to whether Mr. Stepanov received funds from the $230 million fraud?
I'm not aware.
Is it your belief that the allegations in the complaint were based upon the information in Exhibit 15?
I don't know.
In your conversations with Agent Hyman, did he ever talk to you about how you traced money to Mr. Stepanov?
No.
Anybody in the U.S. Attorney's Office have a conversation with you on that subject?
Not to my recollection.
Yeah, according to paragraph 100 of the amended complaint, and you've already referred to this, the Stepanov tax returns show income of $38,000, basically, right?
Sorry, which paragraph is that?
100.
Yep.
All right. So, Mr. Kleiner got the tax returns for Mr. Stepanov?
I'm not sure where they came from.
I believe your book says Mr. Kleiner got them, but you don't know?
I'm not sure.
Let's look at in Exhibit 15. Dates numbers 2451 through 2460. Do you know what these documents are?
Nope.
Do you know whether it would be legal in Russia for Mr. Kleiner to have income tax returns of Mr. Stepanov?
I'm not sure.
You're not sure?
I don't know.
Are income tax returns public in Russia?
I don't know.
Did you ask Mr. Kleiner where'd you get income tax returns?
No.
Because you didn't want to know?
No.
Aren't you curious? You got $38,000 from income tax returns. That's an unusual fact, isn't it? It's unusual to have that kind of information, isn't it?
No.
Do you have income tax returns for other people?
Lots of people have income tax returns.
Lots of people have other people's income tax returns?
Sure, politicians, etc.
Politicians have other people's income tax returns?
No, politicians' income tax returns.
Lots of people have politicians' income tax returns. Mr. Stepanov is not a politician, is he?
No,
What business is he in?
I'm not sure.
Did you investigate what business he was in?
My team did.
And what did they discover?
I think he was a small-time businessman,
Small time being what?
having average earnings with his wife of $38,000 a year.
Do income tax returns in Russia require reporting of foreign income?
I'm not a Russian accountant.
Did you file income tax returns in Russia?
My firm did on my behalf.
Did they report foreign income?
I don't know.
Well, in the United States, you know, we have to report foreign income, right?
I don't know.
You gave up your U.S. citizenship in 1998,
Correct.
right? Just as the laws about reporting foreign income came into effect. Is that right?
I don't know.
Why did you give up your U.S. citizenship in 1998?
I emigrated to the UK 10 years earlier.
So the UK require you to give up your U.S. citizenship?
No,
So then why'd you give up your U.S. citizenship?
personal reasons.
And what are those personal reasons?
My family was persecuted during the McCarthy era.
I see, and your father is the head of the economics department where? What university?
He's not head of any.
What was he?
My father was a professor of mathematics at the
Where?
University of Chicago.
Was he the head of the department at some point?
Yep.
And your uncle? What position did he have?
He was a mathematician at Princeton.
Head of the department at one point?
Yeah.
But you're concerned that your family was persecuted, but they made to the head of the department of two prestigious universities? And that's why you gave up your U.S. citizenship?
Yeah.
What kind of persecution did you face?
My grandmother was sick with cancer, and the U.S. government tried to deport her to Russia when she was dying
What year was that?
in 1950 something.
I see. And so 1998, this all came back as a rush of emotion. You decided to give up your U.S. citizenship.
No.
So as far as you're concerned, it was fine for Mr. Kleiner to have Mr. Stepanov's tax returns, right? Nothing illegal about that,
No.
as far as you know. Let me ask you this. Money comes out of the Treasury, Russian Treasury, and goes to USB and into commerce, right?
Yeah.
Who controlled the money at that point?
I don't know.
At what point, but once it's in USB and it's into commerce, the fraud is accomplished as far as you're concerned, right?
I don't know.
Wasn't it the organization that transferred the money to those two banks?
Yes.
So at that point, they have control over the money, right?
I don't know.
Well, under your theory, at what point does the organization get control over the money?
I don't know.
And you don't know who's directing the money.
I don't know.
Well, do you know why the transfers were made further down the line to other accounts?
I don't know.
To your knowledge, are there any U.S. citizens or residents involved in the theft?
I don't know.
You're not aware of any?
I don't know.
You're not aware of any? You are not aware of any U.S. citizens or residents involved in the theft, are you?
I just don't know.
Well, do you have theories about U.S. citizens or residents who are involved in the theft?
No.
And there are no events to steal the money that occurred in the United States, right?
I don't know.
You're not aware of any, right?
I don't know.
And as far as you know, the people who stole the money were Russians, as far as you know. People you named were all Russian, right?
Yep. Yes.
And the acts to steal the money all occurred in Russia, as far as you know, right?
No.
To steal the money. In other words, to get the money out of the Treasury, there are acts that occurred outside of Russia?
In the amended complaint, in the original complaint, there's a whole series of arguments about planning of the fraud in Cyprus.
I see. Okay. There are no planning events described in the United States, though.
I don't know.
There are none that you know of.
I don't know.
You received a subpoena from the United States in February of 2014.
I did, yes.
We're pulling it out. Well, while we're waiting. Trial was scheduled by the judge on February 4th, 2014 for the end of March 2014. You remember that?
I do.
You were at the White House that day, February 4th, 2014. You remember that?
No.
You were at the White House at the beginning of 2014?
I don't remember.
How many times have you been to the White House?
Once.
When was that?
2000, 2002, something like that.
All right, we'll have to pull out some records. All right, go back to the subpoena. I need a copy of that. So, can you identify what number are we up to? What number was that? 16. It is, for the record, what appears to be a subpoena to William Browder, Hermitage Capital Management, Grafton House in London. And it calls for your appearance in New York on 31st of March 2014 at 10 a.m. It's numbers 266 to 268. So, do you recognize this document?
Yes,
Did you receive this?
I believe so.
By email?
I don't remember.
How did you get it?
I don't remember.
Did you have a conversation with the U.S. Attorney's Office before you received it?
I don't remember.
You don't remember? Would you speak up, please?
I don't remember.
It calls for, please provide any and all records in your possession relating to any USB bank account held in the name of Prevazone Holding Limited,
I'm sorry, where does it say that?
UBS.
Where's
Top of
this?
second page, writer. Related to any UBS bank account held in the name of Prevazone Holding.
Yep.
All right. Did you provide records to the United States in response to the subpoena?
No.
No?
No.
Did you ever provide records of UBS bank accounts held by Prevazone Holdings, its affiliates, parents, directors, or employees to the United States?
Not to my knowledge.
So this is the... Did you receive such records in connection with the Swiss proceeding?
Yes.
And didn't you turn over records from the Swiss proceeding to the U.S. Attorney's Office?
We did.
And didn't they include these bank records?
Not to my knowledge.
What did they include?
Different records.
What records?
Records in connection with Stepanov and Stepanova.
So you never disclosed any UBS bank account records for Prevazone Holding to the United States?
Not to my knowledge.
Well, would somebody else within your team have done it?
I don't know.
Wouldn't they tell you before they did it?
No.
Wouldn't that be a significant thing for you to know as the head of the company?
No.
I mean, people can just turn over records from one court proceeding to another and on a matter in which you have been personally involved for years and not tell you?
Could you rephrase the question?
Yes. It's possible that your team would turn over records from the Swiss proceeding to the United States without telling you?
I kind of doubt it, but I don't know.
So you don't think it happened?
I just don't know.
Do you see the next sentence? Due to the ongoing nature of the investigation, it is requested that you do not disclose any information related to this grand jury subpoena requested to any third party. Do you see that?
Yes.
Did you understand that you were going to appear in front of a grand jury?
I made no assumptions.
Did you agree to appear?
No.
Did you have conversations with the U.S. Attorney's Office about whether you would appear?
No.
Did anybody have conversations on your behalf about whether you would appear?
No.
Well, there were a series of letters. First, the U.S. described you as their key witness. You were aware of that, right?
Yes.
And then there were a series of letters where they cut back on what it would be you might testify about. You're aware of those, correct?
I am.
And how did those letters come about?
They followed one another.
Who had the conversations that led to those letters?
Lots of people.
Who were the lots of people?
Lawyers.
What lawyers?
I can't remember which lawyers. I've had a lot of lawyers.
Did you talk to Brown Rudnick about this subpoena?
I've talked to Brown Rudnick about this.
Did they have conversations with the United States about whether you would appear or not?
I would imagine they did.
Weren't you informed?
I've been informed.
What'd they tell you?
I don't remember.
No idea.
No idea.
Not a clue.
No, a clue.
You have a clue.
I have a clue.
All right. So what's your clue about what you were told?
I'm sorry, are you now referring to a conversation between the DA's office and Mr. Browder, or Mr. Browder and his lawyers?
Mr. Browder and his lawyers.
Okay, I object on the basis of attorney-client privilege.
You instructing him
And
not
I
to
instruct
answer?
him not to answer that particular question, but you can continue.
Did you inform the U.S. Attorney's Office what you were capable of testifying about? Let me ask you a different question. You've read those letters, right?
Yes.
Were you capable of testifying about the subjects that are set forth in those letters?
We'd have to refer to each letter so I can answer that question.
Well, before the letter went from your lawyer to the U.S. Attorney's Office, did you conclude yourself that you were capable of testifying about what was in the letter?
I'd have to look at the letter.
You have no idea.
I don't know which letter you're talking about.
Do we have his visit to the White House? The one for me. I'm marking for identification as Exhibit 17. A document entitled White House Visitor Records Requests.
Yep.
It says name last Browder,
Yep.
name first William,
Yep.
middle initial F. Appointment date February 12, 2014. You see that?
Yes.
So does this refresh your recollection that you had a meeting at the White House with a Mr. Carpenter on February 12th, 2014?
Could you break down the question? There's several questions there.
Did you have a meeting at the White House on February 14, 2014?
No. I had a meeting at the old Executive Office building.
I see. Within the White House complex.
Yes.
So when I asked you when you'd been to the White House, you weren't talking about the White House complex.
Correct.
So I have to be very careful in asking my questions. Is that right? Did you meet with Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Who else was present?
Juliana Glover.
Who's Juliana Glover?
She was my lobbyist.
She was your lobbyist?
Correct.
When did you discharge her from being your lobbyist?
She left her firm to join a new firm, and that's when the business relationship ended.
When was that?
I can't remember, maybe a year ago.
Well, she was present when you were served with a subpoena just a couple months ago, right?
Correct.
But that wasn't part of a business relationship?
No.
Okay. So other than Mr. Carpenter and Miss Glover, who else was present?
Nobody.
And why did you ask for this appointment?
Part of our advocacy for implementing Sergei Magnitsky Rule of Law Accountability Act sanctions.
And what were you asking for?
More people to be added to the list.
And who did you want it added to the list?
I can't remember the names.
Mr. Katzev was not on your list.
No.
Did you ever talk to the U.S. Attorney's Office whether Mr. Katzev should be added to the list?
No.
Anybody in your team have that conversation?
No.
So how long did you meet with Mr. Carpenter?
45 minutes.
And what was the conversation?
About putting people on the Magnitsky list.
And what did you say and what did he say during that conversation?
I said we should put more people on the Magnitsky list.
And what did he say?
We're working on it.
And who are the people you wanted to add to the list?
I can't remember.
Did he say how he was working on it?
No.
One point, you learned that John Kerry, the Secretary of State, stopped additions to the list, right?
What point are you referring to?
In 2014.
I think it was the White House, but I can't remember who was stopping it. Somebody was stopping it.
Didn't you call Mr. Kerry the lapdog of Mr. Putin?
I might have. Are you referring to a specific quote or document?
I'm referring to a quote. Did you call Mr. Kerry the lapdog of Putin?
Could I see the document and I'll confirm it?
No, I'm asking you whether you said it.
I don't remember.
If I showed you the document, you would remember.
It would refresh my memory.
I see. So you have no recollection of calling Secretary of State Kerry the lapdog of Putin.
Maybe your colleague can show me the document and it will refresh my memory.
But unless I show you a document, you're not going to admit to the statement.
I've made a lot of statements about a lot of people. I'd like to see the statement.
Do you feel that Mr. Kerry is the lapdog of Putin?
Well, let me see the statement and I'll...
Do you think Mr. Kerry is the lapdog of Putin?
Do I think... Yes.
And why?
Because, in my opinion, he's following a policy of appeasement towards Russia.
Including not adding people to the Magnitsky list.
Among other things.
What other things are you referring to?
Sanctions policy more generally, arms to Ukraine, Syria, Iran, etc.
An interesting subject, but not part of the lawsuit, so we'll pass on it. So when you heard there was a trial date in this case, were you concerned by that?
No.
Did you talk to Mr. Carpenter about it?
No.
Never even brought it up?
No.
Talk to anybody within the White House complex about it?
No.
Did you talk to anybody in the Justice Department about it?
No.
Okay, so do you have any idea where the United States got records of Prevazone Holdings UBS bank account?
No.
Has your team allegedly traced $230 million or any part of that to Prevazone Holdings?
Isn't this the whole basis for our complaint?
Right. So how did you do that?
My team conducted the investigation.
And how did they do that?
Gathering information from different sources.
What sources? Bring me the quote. I don't think you said that. What sources?
1782 subpoena, OCCRP,
What's that? OCCRP?
the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project.
What, they had records?
No.
They have records of Prevazone Holdings account in UBS?
No.
Well, I want to focus. I understand. I'm looking now at the chart Exhibit 1, tab 7. We've talked about the part up through Bunacon and Ellenest. We're now at, according to this chart, $410,000 that went from Bunacon to Previzone Holdings, and $447,000 that went from Ellenest to Previzone Holdings. Do you see that?
Yes.
So, how did your team trace those funds?
I don't know.
Are there any documents within this exhibit, as far as you know, that trace those funds?
I don't know. I think these numbers, these tab numbers refer to different documents, but I couldn't.
What's that?
I think these numbers, these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, refer
Yeah.
to different documents here, but I don't know how that works.
Okay. Oh, where? Give me a second. Where does it say from here? No, that didn't work. All right, so if we look at 151, that's the Bates number on the bottom.
I'm sorry, what are you referring to?
It's in tab 8, lower right-hand corner, 3128-151.
Okay.
So it talks about a transfer of 447 from LNS to Previzone. Do you see that?
Yep.
And on the opposite page, well, that's the Bunacon payment. So the LNS, I suppose we have to turn the page. I don't know, do you see the 447,000? 'Cause I don't.
So what is your question?
Where is the basis for the statement on page 151 that there was a $447,000 payment from LNS to Previzone?
I don't know.
And you have no idea what these little boxes are that are on the opposite page.
I have no idea.
And you have no idea where they came from.
No idea.
And who on your team should I ask about the transfers from UBS in Switzerland or into the UBS account in Switzerland?
Objection to form.
From, let me start again. Who on your team should I ask about the transfers from Bunacon and LNS into Previzone?
Objection to form.
Could you rephrase the question?
Yes. There's a statement here that LNS transferred $447,000 to Previzone. Who on your team would know how that transfer occurred?
I imagine either the lawyers or Vadim.
And the lawyer's the same lawyers you've been talking about,
Yeah.
and you don't know where they got the records.
No.
Would they have any source of records other than the Swiss proceeding?
I don't know.
Somebody steal the records?
No.
You sure about that?
Yep.
Do you have a whistleblower for these records?
I don't know where these records came from.
What do you know about the company called AFI Europe?
I read something in the complaint about them joint venturing with your clients on German real estate.
Do you know anything else about them?
It's a large Israeli real estate investment company listed on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange.
Has it ever been subject of a criminal investigation, to your knowledge?
I don't know.
Not to your knowledge?
I just don't know.
Do you know Mr. Levayev?
I know of him.
Never met him?
I have.
You've met him how many times?
Twice.
When was that?
In 1996 and sometime in the early 2000s.
What were the circumstances of meeting Mr. Levayev?
Social. He was at a party.
Both occasions?
Yeah.
Never did any business with him?
No.
You know people who did business with him?
No.
You know Mr. Gaidamak?
No.
Know anything about a structure for holding real estate in Europe called the Dutch Sandwich?
No.
You don't own any real estate in Europe?
I'm sorry?
Do you own any real estate in Europe?
No.
Why don't we take a short break?
Time is 4:52 p.m. We are off the record.
Okay.